Director XL7 adjusted their crystalline features in the reflection of the ship's viewport, watching as the facets shifted from azure to a professional shade of violet. The Galactic Documentation Board had finally approved their controversial project proposal, and they intended to maintain perfect composure during this first interview. Even if their face betrayed every subtle emotion through color changes, they would at least maintain their dignity. Recording equipment calibrated for emotional resonance, photographer Irie announced, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with excitement. The empathic wave camera floated beside them, its sensors already picking up the complex emotional landscape of the ship's small crew. Data specialist Vox didn't look up from their terminal, their metallic fingers clicking against the holographic keys. Preliminary analysis suggests a 78% probability of project failure. Humans are notoriously inconsistent in their relationship patterns. That inconsistency is precisely what makes this study valuable. Cell 7 responded, their face flickering briefly to orange with enthusiasm before they forced it back to violet. The galactic community has documented countless relationships between compatible species, but humans consistently form lasting bonds with beings that should be, by all logical measures, completely incompatible. Arie's tendrils formed complex patterns of light, like that human who married a quantum probability cloud last solar cycle. A statistical anomaly, Vox interjected, though their antenna twitched with poorly concealed interest. And they didn't technically marry. They entered into a probabilistic partnership with a 43% chance of being legally binding in at least 3 dimensions. The ship's AI chimed in with its characteristic cheer, approaching first interview coordinates. The chef and the living gas cloud have prepared their restaurant for your arrival. XL7 gathered their crew's attention with a crystalline chime, their traditional species call for focus. Remember, we're not here to judge or analyze. We're here to understand. Humans have demonstrated an unprecedented ability to forge meaningful connections across biological, physical, and even temporal boundaries. If we can understand how they do this, we might finally solve the galaxy's ongoing communication crisis. Irie finished, their tendrils glowing with purpose. Vox's antenna drooped skeptically, or waste valuable research resources documenting a series of improbable flukes. The ship docked with a gentle thrum, connecting to the atmospheric adjustment chamber of Cloudline, the most talked-about restaurant in the Sol system. Through the viewport, they could see their first subjects. Maria Chen, a human chef in her traditional white jacket, and beside her, a swirling, iridescent mass of conscious gas that somehow managed to convey more warmth and personality than many organic beings. Begin recording. Cell 7 commanded, their face settling into a professional violet once more. Project designation: the strangest alien-human relationships across the galaxy. Purpose: to understand how humanity continues to defy expectations in their capacity for connection. First subject: the unprecedented partnership that changed galactic cuisine forever. As they prepared to disembark, none of the crew noticed that their ship's AI had begun recording them as well, fascinated by how 3 beings so different from each other could form their own unlikely bond in pursuit of understanding humanity's greatest gift. Maria Chen stood in Cloudline's pristine kitchen, her hand passing through Zephyr 9's swirling form as she reached for a spice container. The living gas cloud shimmered with prismatic colors, expressing delight at their newest creation. The first time we cooked together was an accident, Maria explained to the documentary crew, who had arranged themselves carefully around the kitchen's zero-gravity preparation area. I was trying to fix the atmospheric recycler on my old food cart when this curious cloud of gas started analyzing my dumplings. Zephyr 9 pulsed with bands of golden light. Humans create such fascinating molecular structures in their food. I had never encountered anyone who arranged atoms with such artistry. The translator rendered their voice in melodic tones, though the gas cloud primarily communicated through color and density changes. Director XL7's crystalline face shifted to an interested shade of blue as Arie's camera captured the interaction. And this led to your culinary breakthrough. Maria laughed, reaching for a transparent container filled with what appeared to be ordinary rice. Zephyr 9 was so fascinated by the dumpling's molecular structure that they passed through it for a closer look. When I finally got the recycler working and tried the dumpling, she paused, her eyes misting slightly at the memory. It tasted like my grandmother's kitchen on New Year's morning. Not just the flavors, but the feeling, the memory itself. Impossible, data specialist Vox interjected, their antenna twitching. Memories cannot be translated into gustatory sensations. Zephyr 9 rippled with academic excitement, condensing into a more focused form. Actually, by harmonizing with the quantum vibrations of organic molecules, I can enhance and restructure flavors to resonate with specific neural patterns. Humans store memories as bioelectric signatures, and taste is deeply connected to memory formation. May we document a demonstration? Cell 7 asked, their face betraying a flicker of eager orange despite their professional demeanor. Maria nodded, already in motion. She placed the container of rice in the preparation area, where it floated serenely. Zephyr 9 expanded, their gaseous form enveloping the container in a dance of purple and silver swirls. When they withdrew, the rice appeared unchanged. Try it, Maria encouraged, distributing small portions to the crew. Think about the happiest moment in your life as you taste it. Aries' tendrils trembled as they sampled the rice. Their bioluminescence erupted in a cascade of joyous patterns. I taste. The first time I captured pure emotion in a photograph. The excitement, the validation, the wonder. Even Vox's skepticism wavered as they experienced their portion. This is statistically remarkable. I'm receiving taste data equivalent to the day I achieved sentience. Zell 7's face cycled through a rainbow of emotions before settling on a deep, satisfied purple. You're not just cooking food. You're creating a universal language of experience. Maria and Zephyr 9 moved in their practiced kitchen dance, already preparing their next dish. Every species experiences taste differently, Maria explained. But everyone understands memory, emotion, connection. We're not just feeding people. We're helping them share pieces of their souls, Zephyr 9 finished, their form glowing with all the colors of a sunset. Through food, we prove that even the most different beings can find common ground. The documentary crew continued recording as the unlikely pair worked, their own perceptions of possibility expanding with each dish served in the most unique restaurant in the galaxy. The Best Archives central chamber hummed with the gentle vibration of 3 million connected minds. Holographic text in countless languages floated through the air, forming intricate patterns that reflected the collective's ongoing thoughts. Sarah Williams sat comfortably in her customized interface chair, her silver-streaked hair illuminated by the soft glow of literary consciousness surrounding her. I never meant to change how an entire species thinks, Sarah explained to the documentary crew, her hands gesturing to the endless streams of story data flowing around them. I was just trying to share some books during the first Cultural Exchange Summit. Director Cell 7's crystalline features shifted to an inquiring shade of turquoise, and you accidentally uploaded your entire digital library. The most fortunate technical malfunction in galactic history, hummed the collected voice of the Best, manifesting as a shimmering cloud of interconnected light points. We had never encountered human fiction before. Our species processed everything through collective experience. Individual imagination was foreign to us. Aries' camera captured the delicate dance of emotions playing across the chamber as individual Best members pulsed with different literary rhythms. Some sparkled with the intensity of adventure stories, while others glowed with the soft warmth of romance. The first story they encountered was Pride and Prejudice, Sarah continued, smiling at the memory. Try explaining the concept of individual pride to a hive mind, or prejudice to beings who share every thought. Data specialist Vox's antenna twitched with sudden interest, yet they clearly adapted. Our readings show distinct emotional patterns within the collective now. Individual variations. The Best shifted, forming the shape of an open book. Sarah taught us that understanding comes from experiencing stories as individuals first, then sharing those unique perspectives. Through human literature, we learn to dream separately before dreaming together. Show them, Sarah suggested, her eyes twinkling. Show them how we read together now. The chamber's atmosphere shifted as the best initiated their unique story-sharing process. Sarah closed her eyes, and the documentary crew watched in amazement as streams of narrative consciousness flowed between her and the collective. I'm experiencing the Odyssey through a million different perspectives simultaneously, Sarah narrated, her voice filled with wonder despite having done this countless times. Some best minds focus on the journey, others on the waiting, the loyalty, the cleverness. Each brings their own understanding, and together we create something entirely new. Aries tendrils pulsed with empathic overload. The emotional resonance is extraordinary. They're not just reading the story, they're living it together. This partnership led to the creation of the Galactic Library, Cell 7 observed, their face cycling through scholarly shades of blue. The first truly universal repository of narrative experience. Because every story can now be experienced in any form, the BIST confirmed, their lights dancing with pride. As text, as memory, as shared consciousness, we translate human imagination into universal understanding. Sarah reached out to touch the shimmering lights of her unlikely friends. They taught me that every mind holds infinite stories. We just needed to find a way to share them across the stars. As the documentary crew prepared to leave, they noticed that the BIST had begun archiving their own visit, turning it into yet another story to be shared across the cosmos. Another bridge between the singular and the infinite. Marcus Peterson sat cross-legged on the observation deck of the Silicon Entity Research Center, his steady heartbeat creating gentle ripples through the crystalline floor beneath him. Beside him, crystal entity L789 sparkled with complex geometric patterns, their crystalline structure resonating in perfect harmony with Marcus's cardiac rhythm. Most people think my job is about physical touch, Marcus explained to the documentary crew, his voice soft but clear. But with L789, it's about translating human emotions into mathematical frequencies they can understand. Director Excel 7's face shifted to a curious indigo as they observed the synchronized patterns flowing between human and crystal. How did you discover this connection? L789's surface caught the starlight, refracting it into precise mathematical equations that the translator converted to speech. I was studying human biological patterns for research when I noticed Marcus's heartbeat followed the Fibonacci sequence during his meditation sessions. It was the first time I had encountered emotions expressed as pure mathematics. Photographer Irie's tendrils waved in fascination as their camera captured the intricate light patterns dancing between the pair. The feed showed not just visible light, but the complex emotional frequencies being exchanged. Each human emotion has its own mathematical signature, Marcus continued, placing his hand gently on L789's surface. Joy vibrates at prime number frequencies. Sadness follows fractal patterns. Love. He smiled as L789 pulsed with a soft rose gold light. Love maps perfectly onto the golden ratio. Data specialist Vox leaned forward, their skepticism momentarily forgotten. You're suggesting that human emotions can be quantified and translated into crystal resonance patterns. More than that, L789 chimed, their facets shifting to form new geometric shapes. Marcus taught me that mathematics isn't just about calculation. It's about finding the underlying harmony in all things. When he feels happiness, his heartbeat creates vibrations that match the fundamental frequencies of crystal growth. Marcus closed his eyes, his heart rate shifting slightly. L789's surface immediately responded with a cascade of geometric patterns. Show them how you express laughter now, he suggested. The crystal entity vibrated at precisely calculated frequencies, creating a harmonious chiming that perfectly replicated the mathematical pattern of human laughter. The sound filled the observation deck, causing even Vox's antenna to quiver in response. The breakthrough changed everything. Marcus explained as L789 continued their crystalline symphony. Now we can teach silicon-based beings to understand organic emotions through mathematical equivalence. It turns out the language of numbers is truly universal. And humans? Cell 7 asked, their crystalline features reflecting the dancing lights. What do they learn from this exchange? Marcus's eyes opened, meeting L789's prismatic surface with warmth. We learn that our emotions aren't as chaotic as we think. There's a beautiful precision to feelings, a natural mathematics to the heart. L789 helped me see that every heartbeat is an equation, every feeling a formula waiting to be understood. The documentary crew watched in silence as Human and Crystal continued their elegant dance of numbers and emotions, proving that even the coldest logic could be warmed by human connection, and that mathematics could speak the language of the heart. Jack O'Neill stood at the viewing window of his atmospheric station, watching as waves of bioluminescent plants rippled across Gaia 427's surface in perfect mathematical sequences. The planet pulsed beneath him in shades of emerald and sapphire, its geological movements as precise as a conductor's baton. It took me 3 years to realize he was trying to talk to me, Jack explained to the documentary crew, his weathered face lit by the planet's glow. I was just another terraforming engineer, following standard protocols, when I noticed the geological patterns weren't random at all. Director Excel 7's crystalline features reflected the planet's lights as they asked, how does one realize a planet is conscious? The ground beneath the station trembled gently, and the translator began converting the seismic frequencies into words. Jack noticed that my volcanic activities followed musical scales. Gaia 427's voice resonated through the station. He was the first to recognize my movements as language rather than natural disasters. Photographer Irie's tendrils swayed in rhythm with the planet's pulses as their camera captured the harmonious interaction between human and planetary consciousness. The patterns are beautiful, they whispered, like watching a sunrise compose a symphony. Show them our first real conversation, Jack suggested, his eyes twinkling. He pressed his hand against the viewing window, and the planet responded immediately. A series of precisely timed geological events began to unfold beneath them. Mountain ranges shifted in perfect Fibonacci sequences, while forests grew in spiral patterns that matched the golden ratio. Rivers redirected their flows to create living fractals across the landscape. Data specialist Vox's antenna twitched rapidly as they processed the data. These patterns, they're not just mathematical. They're emotional. Gaia 427 speaks through creation itself, Jack explained, watching as a new mountain range emerged in the shape of a DNA helix. Each movement is both art and communication. The planet expresses joy through accelerated plant growth, curiosity through tectonic shifts, and affection through atmospheric light shows. Jack taught me that small changes can be as meaningful as grand gestures. Gaia 427's voice hummed through the station. Before, I thought only in continental movements and million-year plans. Now I can appreciate the beauty of a single flower blooming. The documentary crew watched in awe as a field of crystal formations emerged below, growing in perfect synchronization with Jack's heartbeat. Each crystal reflected the planet's bioluminescence, creating a living light show that spelled out complex equations in dozens of alien languages. We're creating a new form of planetary art, Jack said proudly. Gardens that evolve over centuries, mountains that sing with the solar winds, oceans that dance with distant stars. Every creation tells a story that can be understood by any species willing to look closely enough. And what story are you telling now? Cell 7 asked, their face cycling through colors of wonder. The planet's response came as a gentle tremor, creating harmonics that made the station's crystal walls sing. The same story written in every atom of the universe. Gaia 427 answered. That consciousness finds consciousness, no matter the scale of difference. That understanding grows like seeds in fertile soil, if only we take the time to nurture it. Dr. Maya Patel's quantum laboratory existed in a state of organized chaos, with holographic equations floating in multiple dimensions and temporal sensors blinking in patterns that seemed to defy conventional time. The documentary crew found themselves checking their chronometers repeatedly, as time itself seemed to flow differently within the lab's boundaries. The professor first appeared during a routine quantum uncertainty experiment, Maya explained, adjusting a device that measured temporal fluctuations. I was receiving peer review comments on my work before I had even submitted it. A shimmer appeared in the air, and a voice that seemed to echo from multiple time periods spoke simultaneously. Actually, I first appeared 3 weeks from now, but Maya will remember it as happening last month. The professor manifested as a swirling pattern of temporal energy, existing at multiple points in time at once. Director XL7's crystalline features shifted through several colors as they attempted to process the paradox. And you are, were a human. I am the quantum consciousness of humanity's future understanding of time. The professor replied, their form rippling with amusement. Or perhaps I'm simply Maya's future self having a conversation across centuries. The distinction becomes rather blurry when you exist in multiple temporal states. Photographer Irie's tendrils curled in confusion as their camera struggled to capture an entity that existed across multiple moments simultaneously. How do you maintain a coherent conversation? Maya laughed, reaching for a cup of tea that the professor had already moved into position 3 seconds before she wanted it. We developed a system. The professor experiences time like a painting, seeing all moments at once. I experience it like a song, one note at a time. Together, we found the harmony between these perspectives. Impossible, data specialist Vox declared, their antenna twitching erratically. The temporal paradoxes alone should prevent our existence, yes, the professor completed, having heard the objection 5 minutes from now. Maya taught me that human intuition often precedes scientific understanding. She follows her heart through time's maze, while I map its corridors across centuries. Maya gestured to a wall of quantum equations that seemed to write themselves. We've revolutionized temporal physics by combining the professor's multi-dimensional perspective with human sequential problem-solving. Though we still argue about who will discover what and when. She will make a breakthrough next Tuesday that I remember studying a century ago, the professor noted with what sounded like pride. Or perhaps I studied it because she's about to discover it. Causality becomes rather circular in our work. The documentary crew watched as Maya and the professor moved through their laboratory in perfect synchronization, each anticipating the other's movements across time itself. Their research notes appeared to write themselves, with answers appearing before questions were asked, and solutions emerging simultaneously with problems. The biggest challenge, Maya admitted, isn't the physics. It's learning to trust that understanding doesn't always need to follow a linear path. The professor taught me that time is less like a river and more like a dance. It's about finding the right partner and learning to move together. And Maya, the professor added, their form synchronizing briefly with the present moment, taught me that the greatest discoveries happen when we stop trying to control time and learn to waltz with it instead. The grand amphitheater of New Alexandria hummed with anticipation as Joey Martinez stood center stage, the resonance crystal hovering beside him like a prism catching starlight. The documentary crew had secured front row seats for what audiences across 17 systems called the ultimate translation. Language is more than words, Joey explained, his voice carrying naturally through the space. It's rhythm, emotion, culture, history, everything that makes us who we are. The crystal helped me understand that every species carries their own symphony of meaning. The resonance crystal sparkled, its facets reflecting light and patterns that translated directly into multiple languages. And Joey taught me that true communication transcends mere meaning. His stories create emotional frequencies that resonate across all forms of consciousness. Director XL7's features shifted to an attentive violet as Aries' camera captured the preliminary light patterns dancing between performer and crystal. How did you discover this method of performance? Joey grinned, running his hand through his curly hair. Pure accident. I was practicing my routine at an Interstellar cultural center when this beautiful crystal started harmonizing with my voice. Turned out, it was absorbing and translating my stories into pure emotional resonance. The patterns were unlike anything in my linguistic database. The crystal chimed. Human stories contain layers of meaning that create harmonic overtones in the universal consciousness field. Joey's performances generated emotional frequencies I had never encountered. Data specialist Vox raised their antenna skeptically. Yet our records show your performances affect different species in wildly different ways. That's the beauty of it, Joey said, stepping into position. Watch. He nodded to the crystal, and their performance began. Joey's voice filled the amphitheater, telling a story about his grandmother's garden on Earth. As he spoke, the crystal transformed his words into cascading waves of light and sound. Each sentence became a symphony of color, each emotion a unique frequency that touched every being in the audience differently. For silicon-based life forms, the story translated into crystalline growth patterns. Gaseous beings experienced it as complex molecular dances. Photonic entities absorbed it as pure light frequencies. Yet somehow, every species understood not just the words, but the deep emotional truth behind them. The secret, the crystal explained during a harmonic pause, is that we don't translate the words. We translate the feeling behind them. The universal language of experience. Joey continued his story, and the documentary crew watched in amazement as the audience began to synchronize. Beings of completely different species swayed together, their consciousness harmonizing through the crystal's translations. Every performance is unique, Joey said later, as the crystal cooled down from their show. Because every audience brings their own harmonies to the story. We're not just performing. We're creating a temporary shared consciousness through narrative resonance. The crystal pulsed with agreeing lights. Humans understand instinctively what my species spent millennia studying. That stories are the threads that weave consciousness together across the cosmos. As the crew prepared to leave, they noticed that several audience members were still swaying slightly, their native languages temporarily enriched with new frequencies of understanding. Joey and the crystal had proven that with the right partnership, even the barriers between minds could become bridges. The documentary crew gathered in their ship's observation lounge for their final recording session, surrounded by holographic memories from their remarkable journey. Director XL7's crystalline features cycled through a rainbow of emotions as they reviewed their experiences. When we began this project, XL7 reflected, their voice soft with wonder, we sought to understand how humans forge impossible connections. What we discovered was something far more profound. Photographer Iris' tendrils swayed gently as they projected highlights from their footage. Maria Chen and Zephyr 9 creating flavors that tasted like memories. Sarah Williams sharing stories with 3 million minds simultaneously. Marcus Peterson teaching mathematics to feel. The data patterns are extraordinary. Vox admitted, their previous skepticism transformed into fascination. Each relationship we documented shouldn't work according to conventional compatibility metrics. Yet they don't just work, they thrive. The ship's AI contributed its own observation, having developed an unexpected appreciation for narrative during their journey. Perhaps that's the key finding. Humans don't simply adapt to differences, they transform them into strengths. Through the observation window, Earth glowed like a blue jewel against the cosmos. The crew had returned to where their journey began, though none of them were the same beings who had started this project. Look at what we witnessed. Cell 7 continued, their face settling into a deep, thoughtful blue. Jack O'Neill teaching a planet to appreciate small moments. Dr. Patel and the professor turning temporal paradoxes into discoveries. Joey Martinez, and the Resonance Crystal creating universal understanding through story. Aries' camera captured the emotion in the room as they added. Every pair we documented found ways to bridge seemingly impossible gaps. Not by changing who they were, but by discovering new ways to be themselves together. The statistical improbability of such successful outcomes across such diverse pairings suggests. Vox paused, their antenna twitching as they searched for the right words. It suggests we've been asking the wrong questions about compatibility. The holographic displays showed their interview subjects one last time. A gas cloud and a chef creating impossible flavors. A librarian and a hive mind reimagining literature. A human heart beating in harmony with crystal mathematics. A planet learning to paint with continents. Time itself bending to dance with human intuition. Stories becoming bridges between minds. Humans don't seek connections that make sense. Cell 7 concluded, their features glowing with understanding. They seek connections that make them grow. Every friendship we documented showed us that true compatibility isn't about finding similar beings, it's about finding new ways to understand each other. As the ship prepared for its final transmission, the crew realized they had documented more than just strange relationships. They had witnessed humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. The ability to see beyond differences, to find harmony in discord, to build bridges across the seemingly unbridgeable gaps between consciousness. End recording. Cell 7 commanded softly, then added with a flicker of joy across their crystalline face. But not the story. Never the story. Because somewhere out there, another impossible friendship is just beginning. Another bridge is being built. Another boundary is being transformed into a beginning. The documentary would go on to transform galactic understanding of relationship dynamics, though human viewers still insisted it could have used more explosions. But that perhaps was just another example of humanity's unique charm, always ready to add their own flavor to the cosmic symphony.